Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 multiplayer action. You can see Wulfric sitting atop his throne, which means it's mammoth time. Myself facing off against Flying Taco on Glacial Lake with Norsca versus Chaos. Should be a nice and quick one. This is actually a battle that happened on Gojira's stream recently. Many of you may know Gojira, beloved community member, young Gojira, hosted a nice King of the Hill. So I had just a few minutes to jump in, literally just a few minutes. So I had map pick and first faction pick. I thought, let's do something fast and easy. Glacial Lake, both of us picked Chaos faction, so you know it's going to be fast and bloody. Let's go ahead and pause here and take a look at the builds just very quickly. I've got Wulfric on a Mammoth, 2 Famir, a bunch of regular Marauders for infantry. We've got a Shaman Sorcerer Lore of Death, some Marauder Horsemen, and the usual kennel that I run, Beasts of Tashnar and Norscan Ice Wolves, 2 Feral Manticores. For the Warriors of Chaos, we've got Archaon the Everchosen, a Shaggoth here, currently Plague of Rusted and taking jabs to the face. Lots of Chaos Warriors through the center, 2 Chosen with Halberds, acting as sort of like Triari in the back line here. And some Chaos Marauders as well. So you can see right off the bat, we're going to get big nasty engagement, huge swing and a miss there with an overcast searing doom for myself. Not the best, but Plague of Rust still active on this Dragon Ogre Shaggoth, and you can see we have gotten the kennel in here. This is why I use these two together. You get lots of weapon damage, anti-large, and frostbite. So yeah, looks like we're going to have Burning Head from Archaon, mostly swing and a miss there, and that Shaggoth is getting beat up really bad by those hounds. Wulfric also comes in to drop some Mammoth attacks here, and it's just generally not going to be a great situation for the Shaggoth. This is great for me, 2,000 resources right off the bat. Going to be gone. Unfortunately, Archaon gets in here with Chosen with Halberds. They're going to do a bunch of damage to both the Sorcerer and the Famir here, so I'm going to need to pull back on these Famir. We have been able to do some damage to these Chaos Warriors across the rest of the field here. My Marauders will beat Chaos Marauders, obviously, because of the Enrage makes them slightly better, so they will win that engagement eventually. Chaos Warriors, on the other hand, though, are going to be more than a match for my Marauders. You can see, unfortunately, did take a lot of damage on that Metal Sorcerer there, so that's not the best, but the Shaggoth's being chased off by some Marauder Horsemen, so again, very cost-efficient there. So far, so good, and you can see I'm kind of just pulling these units back and then constantly just trying to re-engage. We got a Plague of Rust here on these Chosen, I believe. I'm not sure. They got something, maybe just Frostbite, it looks like. Plague of Rust on these Chosen. Try and do a bit of extra damage, but there's not really anything in melee. I mean, these Marauders aren't really going to be able to touch them, so yeah, you can see basically I'm just trying to keep my large units away from these Halberds as much as possible and then go after the shielded Chaos Warriors who don't have anti-large. We're going to drop a nice little boat straight through the Chosen as well. We'll do a little bit of area of effect damage. Doesn't do the most armor piercing in the world, but it's something, certainly. Archaon also getting singled out in the back line here. I was trying to catch him with a Manticore here, see if we couldn't get some of these other units in as well. We're also going to drop another big Searing Doom here. Again, doesn't actually do that much damage at the end of the day, so not the best. I'm going to re-engage my Hounds here to try and fix Archaon in place. Again, just basically do the same thing we did with the Shaggoth. Use the Hounds, the 2 Manticores, debuff from Wulfric here. You can see Hunter of Champions goes down on Archaon there, and he's taking a lot of damage. Actually, not Hunter of Champions, just Frostbite. Even still, though, he's taking a lot of damage and just in a really bad situation here. Unfortunately for me, my 2 Hounds rout, and that's mainly what's keeping him pinned in here, and without the Frostbite, Archaon is going to be able to escape that situation. You can see I'm slightly ahead on the balance of power at this point, though. Archaon does have the Crown of Domination, so these Chosen, which normally would not be immune to Psychology, will be when he is nearby, and that is unfortunate for me, just because terror routing these Chosen with Halberds is going to be the best way for me to deal with them. This is also a bit of a mistake here. I'm letting my Chaos Sorcerer get singled out by these 2 Marauder Horsemen jabs here. They're going to pour in. He only has 85 armor, which is decent. It's pretty good, but it's not amazing. So he will take some damage from those javelins. You can see, again, just trying to pull back the Famir, not let them sit and stay engaged on those Chosen with Halberds for too long. It's just really not a good engagement for me to take. The rest of my forces are the rallying Hounds here, trying desperately to catch Archaon, but the Chosen with Halberds are a little bit in the way here, so instead we are going to just collapse on these tattered Chaos Warriors. Let's see if we can't just start a bit of a rout. Speaking of rout, Shaman Sorcerer routing here, not the best. And yeah, these Famir, I'm just struggling to get them away from these Chosen with Halberds here, and it's pretty unfortunate. I had meant to bring Transmutation of Lead with my Chaos Shaman Sorcerer, specifically to debuff the melee attack of Chosen with Halberds if there were to be some on the field. Unfortunately, I cut it just absent-mindedly without really thinking about it too much, and really ended up regretting my decision. Would have definitely helped quite a bit here, but at this point, honestly, I'm not super confident about my chances of victory here, mainly because Archaon's still alive, and I haven't really been able to get to him. My resources just kind of slowly getting ground down. Norsca's not that great in an attritional fight, and a lot of my units are starting to run out of steam. The Wulfric's still relatively healthy on his Mammoth, but the rest of the units here are struggling in terms of their HP. So, yeah. Shaman Sorcerer did come back from rout. We're going to try and bring him back and see if we can't get at least one more Plague of Rust before he routs, but unfortunately those Marauder jabs are not going to allow that to happen. So that is going to start to tip the balance power slightly against me here, and you can see I'm trying to just reunify the Famir with the Hounds and with Wulfric here, but really these Hounds are way too tattered at this point. They really don't have the stats to get through these Chosen with Halberds, especially with that Cascading Fire Cloak juicing up their melee defense to 83. Just not going to be able to make contact whatsoever, so at this point, there's not really a whole lot left to do except try and just cycle charge with Wulfric a little bit here. With his charge bonus and with his massive weapon strength, huge AoE damage. He will do a lot. And you can see as soon as he comes in here, he starts chunking those Chosen, even with their buffed up melee defense. Unfortunately, there's just not really enough supporting units at this point. Again, we're going to try and single out Archaon here with the Manticore, use the Wulfric to come in with the Mammoth, but Archaon's just too quick. Gets away, and unfortunately not going to be the end of the Ever-Chosen here, and slowly but surely the balance power tipping in Taco's favor here. And yeah, that Manticore gets enraged fighting Archaon, and that's going to be the end of that. Pretty much just Wulfric and the Mammoth left, so nothing really to do but charge in here and try and kill a few more Chaos Warriors just to appease Khorne. And no doubt, oh man, he's like got him in the trunk? I don't think I've ever seen that animation before. That was super cool. You learn something new every day. After playing this game for thousands of hours, having literally like almost 1,000 YouTube videos on my channel, I still have never seen that animation play before. That was super cool. Anyway, as cool as it was, Wulfric's still not in the best situation fighting Chosen with Halberds here. They are getting pretty low, but unfortunately, again, with Archaon still being around with his Crown of Domination, that immune to psychology, which the Chosen normally would not have. Obviously, in this situation, they are not going to be terror routed whatsoever, which is normally one of their weaknesses. So, yeah, it's not going to be a good day for Norsca. We'll kind of fast forward through this late game here, as ended up not being quite as fast as I initially had thought, but still a very fun game. Nice back and forth with Flying Taco, and it's always a fun time to play this matchup. In particular, just, you know, two rush factions, but sort of the nuances of the rush, right? Like, you have to bring the right units. I was talking to Gojira after the fact, like after the stream, just kind of evaluating my performance in general. I think for this build, having the Famir ended up being a little bit of a mistake. I was able to deal with the Shaggoth, which is kind of the main reason I brought them, is to potentially support against like Kolek or Shaggoths. They ended up really not having a home. I mean, they didn't really end up helping take out the Shaggoth either. That was mostly down to the Beasts of Tashnar and the Norscan Ice Wolves there. So, in hindsight, I definitely would have cut these two Famir Great Weapons for Marauder Great Weapons, or sorry, Marauder Champion Great Weapons. We'll talk more about that in just a minute here. But Wulfric on the Mammoth I do like quite a bit here, despite the danger of Chosen with Halberds. And you can see, maybe if I had pulled back my Hounds slightly sooner from that engagement with Archaon to where they wouldn't have routed off, played them a little bit more conservatively until I was able to actually catch and kill Archaon. Like, if I had been able to actually fully catch him out and finish him off, I definitely would have won. But Taco, being crafty, was able to extricate Archaon there and keep him alive through the late game, despite my best efforts. So, yeah, like I said, in hindsight, I would definitely cut these Famir Warriors with Great Weapons down. Let's go ahead and talk about here just a little bit. So this is one of the few matchups where, I mean, Famir are just one of the best units for Norsca, no question. This is one of the few matchups, though, where I'm starting to kind of question them a little bit. Just because you have other tools where you can deal with Chaos's monsters relatively effectively. And this is one of the few matchups as well where I think Marauder Champions with Great Weapons might be okay. Their stats are really just so poor for the cost if you really look at their like melee attack and defense. And against Chosen with Halberds, I mean, Chosen with Halberds have 54 melee defense, so these guys are going to have a hard time getting through that with their 34 melee attack. You're really going to have to try and use your attack buffs from like Wulfric the Wanderer. Maybe you could juice them up with a few chevrons. I mean, Famir great weapons are 1350, so if you juiced up these guys to an equivalent cost, they go up to what, 4140? That's okay. With 80 leadership, only 80 armor isn't the best, and 40 weapon strength is okay. But I mean, you compare these guys to like just as a fun experiment. Let's pull up some other great weapon infantry here, and you guys will understand why I'm not the biggest fan of Norsca and Marauder champions in general. What am I looking for? Greenskins. Let's compare these guys to the cream of the crop. So obviously, like, we have Chaos Warriors with great weapons and Chosen with great weapons, and Marauder champions are kind of somewhere in between, right? They do have a little bit less HP than Chosen. As for Chaos Warriors have slightly less HP than champions. They do have more armor, but in terms of their stats, you can see their attack and defense stats are exactly the same as Chaos Warriors. And Chaos Warriors are 850, whereas these guys are 1100, these champions. And also champions, like, let's just have a look here. They have less armor, which, you know, hurts their survivability. Granted, they do have the Enrage and a little bit more HP, but they also have just barely slightly higher charge bonus, speed, and weapon strength. So really, for not that much more cost, you're not getting that much more benefit. You compare Chosen at 300 points more, and they're just significantly better all across the board. And it really just shows the Marauder champions are not most cost effective in the world. If we compare them to Black Orcs 50 points more expensive, and pretty comparable in terms of their stats. They even Marauder champions even have a slightly better melee attack. Keep in mind though, Black Orcs do have 50 weapon strength. They have about 1,000 more HP, a little bit less, 900, but they also again have more armor, slightly less models, but they're immune to psychology baseline. And the other thing too is, I mean, when looking at any greenskin unit's attack stats, you have to keep in mind that they have a massive power spike in WoW that's map-wide plus 20 melee attack, not to mention lots and lots of attack buffs from both Lords of Magic, and if you take Wurzag, you're getting a constant stream of buffs from the Bonewood Staff, a plus 13 melee attack, which again is very, very significant. So Black Orcs are going to be pretty consistently hitting, you know, around 50 or so melee attack with those buffs going off, and I mean, Marauder champions, you just don't have the same access to melee attack buffs. Really, the only one you have access to is Fight or Die. None of your Lords of Magic have access to melee attack buffs. I mean, I guess the Skinwolf Werekin, yeah, he has a defensive buff, but your only attack buff comes from your General. So short of putting chevrons on these guys or debuffing your opponent's melee defense, that is also a valid tactic. There are not a whole lot of ways to do that, but you know, either way will help these guys make more significant contact against those Chosen with halberds. Alternately, what you could do is just like go for more. This is pretty risky, but with the mobile pressure I had, like with the Marauder Horsemen and the Hounds and everything, I could have pretty easily won a mobility advantage. I guess if I had played a bit of a kite game with like these Marauder Hunters with throwing axes, that could have maybe worked out. I don't know. I'd have to kind of play around with it a little bit and see. I mean, obviously one good way of dealing with elite halberds is magic damage, so you could take a Shaman Sorcerer Lore of Death instead of fire, just bring Fate of Boring. Just, I mean, it's boring, but it will give you insurance and a way to reliably do a lot of HP damage to elite halberds, so maybe you take that instead. I think it's super boring though, so I tend to go with other spells. Lore of Fire, if you did have that. Piercing Bolts of Burning is very good to drop on elite units. Flamestorm is not necessarily good, but it's definitely a lot of fun, and if you overcast it, it lasts a long time and can lead to some hilarious shenanigans. So, I mean, if you're really playing Chaos to the most chaotic theme, then you really got to take Flamestorm. But if you're being competitive, you probably don't take it. Honestly, like side-shotting Fireball through the side of a unit of armored infantry can do relatively well. But if you really want the most reliable way, you take Fate of Boring. But, of course, it's very boring, so I tend not to do that. Let me know in the comments down below, though. What do you guys do as Norsca to deal with elite halberds? There's a few different ways you can go about it, but this is one matchup where I could see, you know, maybe if you got, like, the two Marauder champions to stand right on top of Wulfric, because he's going to be throwing out that Fight or Die every so often, they'll get a little melee buff. And, of course, if you did take the Metal Sorcerer, as I had there on the Chariot, Definitely recommend bringing Transmutation of Lead. That melee attack debuff is just going to help your Marauder champions survive a little bit longer. So, yeah, if I were to sort of just reconstruct that real quick, let's see here. So we've got those spells, and then we're going to grab our 4 Marauder Chaff here. And we definitely want the Kennel. The Kennel is very, very essential here. The 2 Feral Manticores, honestly, I think are a pretty good cost-effective pick. They can kind of just drop mobile terror all across the field, help terror out, like, regular Chaos Warriors, the Marauders and everything. I didn't use them probably as effectively as I could have there, but they're still a nice utility pick for 800 points. And then, what am I missing? Oh, the Mammoth, obviously. I do tend to keep Foe Seeker just because, I mean, yeah, you don't really need the speed most of the time, in my experience, and I would definitely take these 3 abilities. On the Mammoth, I don't know if I would take Sword of Torgal. It's pretty expensive. I mean, it does give you a ton of extra weapon damage. But, I mean, it's not armor-piercing weapon damage, if I remember right. It's just straight up, and when he's on the Mammoth, he doesn't actually have that much regular weapon damage, so it's not... You don't really get that much value from it while he's on the Mammoths, which is why I tend not to take it in that situation. But at this point, we've still got a few points left. I guess I'm missing, what, my Marauder Horseman. Still got about 300 points. I might fine-tune some things here, tweak around with a little bit of different stuff. Maybe throw some chevrons on these champions, maybe upgrade these 3 Marauder Horsemen for throwing axes, just so that we have a missile block chance, and AP missiles, obviously. Maybe this would work. I don't know. With having Plague of Rust, though, I tend not to take the shield of the great weapon units. Like, honestly, you can maybe even take just shielded champions here. They have much better melee defense. They're going to be much more survivable. And then you just drop an Overcast Plague of Rust on those Chosen, and they get, you know, minus 60 armor. Suddenly these champions might trade okay into them. I don't know. At this point, you've got an extra 2,000 points. You can really do whatever you want with it. But I've been rambling long enough, quite a long video, and just theory crafting after the fact. But I know a lot of you like this sort of long theory crafting after the fact, so hopefully you've enjoyed this. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button, so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.